Good afternoon to my entire Jeunesse Australasia family as I welcome you to session 3 of our 4-part masterclass series on AMPM. Session 1, you've seen us take a deep look into AM. Session 2, you saw us take a deep look into PM. And today, we're going to take you through AMPM and how it can help work with your immunity. Joining me today is none other than Nobel Prize nominee and Jeunesse Scientific Advisory Board member, Dr. GM Papa. Such a pleasure to be here with you today, Dr. GM Papa. Thank you.
Well, Rachel, my pleasure to be here again with you in this series I love doing because it really helps to emphasize the uniqueness of AMPM, and particularly in today's environment with the need to keep our immune systems optimal. I'd like to focus on that. So we'll do a little review of both AM and PM, but then we'll focus on how we can keep our immune system strong with the right lifestyle habits and how we can bundle the procedures, the products, so to speak, that are already in the YES system and how they target specific aspects and help our immune function. So with that, we'll get started tonight, this afternoon as well. So as I mentioned in our previous master classes, AMPM is an evolutionary step beyond vitamins and minerals in that it actually is designed to work on specific genes inside our each one of those 100 trillion cells to help decrease inflammation, improve cell function for both stem cells and body cells, and again to help balance the function in different organs as well as our hormones and our sleep-wake cycle. So vitamins and minerals alone don't even come close to doing what the design that was built into AMPM does do. Now, when we look at the youth enhancement system again, which is unique to Jeunesse, one of the key things I want to stress as we move into this afternoon is when we use together a specific group of the YES system products, they focus tremendously on immune function. And we'll get into that in more detail as in the next few minutes. But AMPM is a base fundamental product that on its own also helps with immune function. We're going to look at how the synergy between Zen, the Zen product line, between Vita Blue as well as Reserve all help with tremendously with helping maintain not only a normal but an enhanced immune function. So as I said, AMPM is designed as a foundation product. That means that when you take AMPM, within a week, you will feel the difference in your sleep, your energy. You may also notice, for instance, that your mental function is better. And why is that? It's because the ingredients in AMPM actually help turn up specific genes that were basically dormant due to the aging process and actually turn down the genes that accelerate aging. Now, once we do that, the other products, even the food you eat, can be more beneficial to each one of those 100 trillion cells in your body. So it helps prime both our body cells and stem cells to respond better to other ingredients that come into our body or actually come into our environment. And as we said before, the two key things to keep in mind that distinguishes AMPM from a vitamin mineral supplement is its impact on our body cells and the genes that are involved in regulating health and wellness, but also our stem cells. Now, without stem cells, we would probably live no longer than a few months because as our body cells get damaged or decrease in function with aging, our body's second reservoir, our regenerative reservoir, our adult stem cells move in to replace and restore those cells that are damaged or have just run out of function due to the aging process. So keeping our stem cells functioning optimally is one of the most important things for an extended period of health span. And as we mentioned in our previous master classes, you know, a stem cell can become any one of 220 different cells in the body. And you can see here that how important that is. You know, we all eventually succumb not to a total body failure, but basically one of our key organ systems out-ages the other. And this is what usually does us in. So the secret here is to keep that regenerative potential optimal for as long as possible so we don't end up with one part of our body out-aging the other. So AMPM, again, its focus and its distinguishing feature that takes it way beyond vitamins and minerals. Its function is to help both body cells and stem cells attain a new level of quality and function. So as we age, what happens is in our youth, adolescence, we use up a large number of those stem cells, which is the way the human body was designed to arrive at a mature adult. And at the level of a mature adult, we're talking about our early 20s to maybe our mid 30s. Our body's regenerative potential is phenomenal. This is a period of time in our lives we get very little cancer, if any. Our bodies are functioning optimally, mentally, physically. And this is where the ideal set of genes have been turned on, and very little bit of those age accelerating genes are actually turned on. So once we hit our late 30s, early 40s, we're going to start to see a change in both the number of our stem cells, the function, and also what we call the appearance of what we call damaged cells or senescent cells. Now, why this is bad is because those senescent cells actually accelerate the aging process. And as those senescent cells increase in number and our healthy stem cells decline, once we hit that critical point, we age very quickly and then we die. But today, we actually have therapeutic interventions that can help slow that process and even reverse it in many cases. So your body's health does start to decline about age 25. And again, it has to do with the loss of function of both our body cells and our stem cells. As we discussed earlier, what makes us unique as human beings, in each one of those 100 trillion cells, we have 6 feet of DNA. Now imagine that's enough, in a human body, that's enough DNA to go to the moon and back again a number of times. So why do we have so much DNA in each one of these cells? The secret is actually out there now. We now know. In each one of those cells, we have DNA that's redundant. Okay, that is, we have copies of DNA that are in reserve in case certain areas of our genetics get damaged. So what we start to see is the DNA in our cells actually acts like a computer software system. Okay, so this is an amazing finding. And even Bill Gates recently had to admit that DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software we've ever created. Let me give you an example. Every one of the cells in our body has to respond to literally hundreds of thousands of signals every few minutes. That means that the DNA in our body is constantly being challenged by tasks to make a decision about what to do to keep that cell healthy. Now, the only way that could happen is with the use of DNA. And why do we know that? Is because today we actually have early prototypes of DNA computers that can actually not just solve a single problem, which is what today's computers do when you input data, but DNA software programs in actual computers can do what's called parallel processing. That means you could give it a problem and it will not give you just a solution. It might give you half a dozen solutions in order to solve that one problem. And this is unique. So basically, each one of our cells are like even a more advanced genetic software program computer that has to respond to hundreds of thousands of stimuli and changes in cellular environments to keep us healthy. Just like a computer program can crash if it gets a virus in today's environment, that's kind of an interesting analogy because we're all being basically threatened by viruses. But in a computer program, when we have a computer virus, what happens eventually, if there's enough damage to our software, the computer will crash. Same thing with our cell phones. Now, in the human body and human cells, if DNA is damaged to a certain degree, the body has a program where it actually will cause that cell to be disrupted and die. And frankly, one of the things we've just found out about viral infections is when the virus infects a cell, any type of virus, not just a specific one in general, but any type of virus will initiate a program that we have a genetic backup for, and that's called apoptosis, which means it'll cause that cell to rupture, and when that cell ruptures, the virus dies. Now, unfortunately, as we get older, that self-destruct cellular program becomes less and less efficient also. So we've now learned that there's different ways to help restore the damage to our, quotes, genetic software. And we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And just like a antiviral program might get entered into your computer to remove some of those viruses before it crashes, we can now start looking at how we can do that inside each one of the 100 trillion cells that make us up. Now, again, what distinguishes AMPM from a simple multiple vitamin is it's over 70 plus natural ingredients that have antioxidants, anti-inflammatory compounds, digestive enzymes, and ingredients that impact specific genes involved in cellular aging. Now, you could never eat all of these things daily, nor could you even find them, because many of these things are only available for short periods of time throughout the year. But we've chosen the purest and most credible extracts to give to you in AMPM on a daily basis. So again, we're going to talk briefly about what happens in both our body cells, our genetic software, and even our immune system. So when we ingest, for instance, an AM tablet, there's some vitamin C in there. That vitamin C will get absorbed through the small intestine. It will then go into the bloodstream and go to a cell, arrive finally at a cell. Here it will initiate a signal that will start to activate specific genes and change the behavior of that cell and eventually other parts of the body. So what happens is when that vitamin C hits the cell membrane, it sends a signal to the chromosomes which cover the DNA. Now, I kind of use this analogy. If you see my sleeve, my sleeve is sort of like the chromosome. And when a signal comes to the cell and hits and sends a signal to the chromosome, the sleeve opens up and my DNA is exposed. Once that DNA is exposed and unwinds, it then begins to form a protein. Okay, and when that protein is formed, that protein will literally then go back into the bloodstream and either start to form an immune globulin, a hormone, a precursor to a muscle, bone, or even some nerve tissue. And it really depends upon what that ingredient is and what genes are turned on that will dictate the quantity and quality of those proteins. So AMPM, when people ask you, gee, I already take a vitamin supplement, why should I take Genesis AMPM? It's because it's kind of like a Volkswagen to a Ferrari. You're actually helping to restore your genetic software, helping to restore your body's levels on sleeping and waking, cellular repair, digestive enzymes that actually help give you more nutritional value out of the food you eat for each meal as well. So one of the things we looked at when we did a survey of 300 users of AMPM was one of the most important things they noticed was at the end of 4 weeks, their sleep quality and duration was better. 68% of people said it was better. At the end of 12 weeks, 88% of people said their duration and quality of sleep was better. Now, I'm going to focus on sleep here today because the more new information we get week by week, month by month, shows that sleep is one of the most important things to keep our immune system functioning well. So we actually go through a number of cycles in our sleep. And one of the most important things to keep in mind is when we have to have a certain amount of deep sleep and a certain amount of REM sleep. Now, both REM sleep and deep sleep are involved in permanently storing our memories and experiences throughout the day. But most importantly, when we go into deep sleep, and if you'll notice here on the slide, most of the deep sleep occurs in our early couple of hours of sleep. So what happens then is during deep sleep, cellular repair, DNA repair is going on. hormonal levels are being restored. That is, for instance, cortisol levels are being adjusted to a more optimal level, so they're not being detrimental. Hormones like DHEA are being released, which actually are immune stimulators. So without sleep, we do not get this key component these key components that help build and maintain a normal and, even more importantly, an enhanced immune function. So if we don't get sleep, let's take a look at some of the impaired things that happen to our health. For instance, again, obviously, if we don't get enough sleep, our memory is dramatically reduced. We not only can't remember, we can't be creative. We have higher levels of anxiety. We actually have increased symptoms of depression due to the loss of neurotransmitters that have to be restored in deep sleep. Now, here's the other things that really are something to remember. If you don't get at least 7 hours of sleep a night, and that's good quality sleep, your incidence of stroke, diabetes, heart disease are dramatically increased, up to almost 5 to 6 times as the average person. So we're starting to see how important sleep is. Now, in women, people who lack sleep, their incidence of breast cancer is significantly higher at night. Okay, and weight gain is one of the most common sequelae, if you will, to lack of sleep. And why is that? Is because when you don't get enough sleep, your cortisol levels are elevated. And the more elevated cortisol you have, the more fat deposition occurs to the body. So these are just some of the key things we have to keep in mind, and why AMPM is so important to help you get a good night's sleep. Okay, so we talked in the previous master classes about how many tablets of AM or PM should I take. And in this case, when we take AM and PM together, there's a resynchronization of a certain aspect of our, what we call the autonomic immune system, the autonomic nervous system, I'm sorry. So the autonomic nervous system is what regulates the sleep-wake cycle, the hormonal release cycle, and in essence helps with our immune function as well. So if you're taking just PM, it's good. It will help with sleep, which certainly is a major component. But if you're not taking AM, PM together, you're not getting the full benefit of the design concepts and the cellular enhancements that you could be getting if you were taking them together. So especially during times of stress, okay, it's perfectly normal to have problems sleeping. So many of the distributors I spoke to say, Dr. G, I'm so stressed, and I noticed that if I take not just 2, sometimes I take 3 or 4 AMs, 3 or 4 PMs, I sleep better and I feel better. Now, you may not have to do that every night, but during times of stress, whether it's emotional stress, physical stress, additional PMs can be a big help by helping to induce longer and better quality sleep. Let me make a comment about physical size. We have a lot of Oriental distributors who are smaller, tiny people. They might be 100 pounds. They'll probably do fine on 1 AM and 1 PM. Then we have our big German distributors and Scandinavian distributors who are probably, 250 pounds. And so these people do great on 3 AMs and 3 PMs. So one of the things to keep in mind is, no matter what your size is, to experiment a little bit with, gee, is 1 AM, 1 PM tablet really kind of making me feel ideal where I want to feel from a functional point of view? Try 2 AMs, try 2 PMs, or if you're having problems, adjust the tablets based upon what you want to accomplish, and then see where your overall effects are and how you feel. So this is what we start to call personalized medicine. So DNA basically is now seen as the blueprint, if you will, for our health, our longevity, and many other, for instance, physical characteristics of our body. But what controls DNA is the environment it's placed in. So DNA is not the thing that dictates your future health or longevity. DNA is something that is controlled by the environment. And we're going to talk about what that consists of. Okay. So AM and PM's, if you will, sub-program, genetic program, is to help increase energy and mental focus. And the ingredients in AM help to produce more ATP at the level of your cells by the little organelles called mitochondria. And the mental focus component has to do with other ingredients that help with those neurotransmitters that keep you alert, awake, and help with learning. And PM has ingredients that does similar things, but really is focused on a subgroup of ingredients that help with sleep and cellular repair. And this is so important because we want to balance this sleep-wake cycle, which usually reverses as we get older. We usually are tired in the morning and can't sleep at night. So this is another main function of AMPM. So we frequently show this slide because, frankly, people say to me, well, why should I buy AMPM? I can go out and buy the same ingredients. Well, if you take a look at the left here, this is literally what, if you bought each one of the ingredients in a separate capsule, what you'd have to take every day. Now, this is something that virtually is impossible to do. And the bottom line is it's not just the ingredients, but it's how they're placed together, how the caplets are formed so they open up into your small intestine, not in the stomach where the acid would ruin most of the ingredients. So let's talk about what I just said. DNA is really the code, but that doesn't mean if your parents had high blood pressure or high cholesterol, you're going to get that. You inherit genetic tendencies, not genetic certainties. What does that mean? That means that if 30% of the genes you have you inherit from your parents, and it might be even less now, but approximately 30% may dictate your future health. But that leaves 70% up to you, which really determines, for instance, if you have high blood pressure, if you have high cholesterol, if you gain weight, or you have a great body composition, exercise, diet, your stress levels. If you live in a polluted city with a lot of noise or just industrial pollution, all impact what genes that get turned on and turned off. And most importantly, are not only the supplements you take, but the information that you're given. Because we as human beings are mentally functioning, mentally activated. And so I like to make this comment in that information, and Jeunesse is highly focused on giving you scientific information. But information changes how you think. How you think changes how you act. How you act creates new habits, and habits then change your genes. So if you read or you hear the information from us, the information we're giving you is how you can do everything possible within your personal control. You're 70% the one in control of your future health. And no matter how healthy you think you are today, you can be significantly healthier in the near future. So let's take a look at these key factors that help with your immune function. Sleep a minimum of 7 hours daily. The latest research shows that if you sleep less than 7 hours, you're going to start to fail in your health. On the other hand, if you sleep 9 hours or more, that's detrimental as well. So there's a window of optimal sleep. Prebiotics and probiotics. Why are those important? Now, those are in AMPM, and they're important because your intestinal flora, or the bacteria your friendly bacteria that live particularly in your small intestine, need the food to continue to replicate, and they need to be replaced. So very, very few supplements have a combination of prebiotics, probiotics, and the other things we're going to mention. And let me make a comment. In your small intestine are little areas of a lymphoid tissue, and it's called Peyer's patches. Now, those little patches of lymphoid tissue are nourished by the bacteria in your intestine. And if you don't have the appropriate amount of bacteria, they cannot make the immunoglobulins that are so important for a major part of your immune system. So without a healthy small intestine, your immune system is not going to function optimally. Vitamins, particularly vitamin D and D3, vitamin C, B6, vitamin E, are all essential for the reactions that are required in the immune system. General body inflammation is a terrible thing. In fact, most people have too much inflammation in their body, and we can measure this amount of inflammation with simple blood tests these days. One of the most common is what's called high sensitivity CRP, or C-reactive protein. Now, when your inflammation is high, your immune system is challenged. Your immune system doesn't work as well. When your inflammation levels are high, viruses that attack your body can replicate more quickly and more efficiently. So we don't want to have a lot of inflammation in our bodies. Aside from that, inflammation is probably the most common contributor to most of the diseases that occur during the aging process, including cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, a loss of general mental function, arthritis. So you see, the lower we keep our inflammation, the better as well. Now, let me skip down to body composition, because as we age, most of us will have more body fat and less muscle mass. The more body fat we have, the more inflammation we have. The more muscle mass we have, the less inflammation we have. So exercise is an ideal way to help restore body composition, but also keep the inflammatory levels in our body down. Stem cell function and number. Well, more and more information is now coming out to show that as we age, decade to decade, year to year, we lose the number and the function of the stem cells we have when we were born. And I'll again kind of emphasize the fact that each one of us are born with a fixed number of stem cells. So women usually are born with a larger number of stem cells than men, which is probably why they live longer and men die quicker. And though when I am on the lecture circuit, I ask men, why do you think men die quicker than women? And unfortunately, I get the response, because we want to. But I mean, all kidding aside, the bottom line is it has nothing to do with you want men. It has to do with the fact you're just born with less stem cells. So taking a look at all of this, how can just this information be interpreted into the yes system? So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, I want to document something, and I think we talked about this before. We wanted to prove that AMPM actually can make a difference in what genes are turned on and off. So we did this first initial study in the University of Taiwan. And in this, we fed living cells AM and PM. And we looked at the genes involved in longevity and wellness. That's the SIRT1 genes. And we looked at the genes that are involved in creating more stem cells and stem cells turning into and differentiating into different tissues. And to our amazing but anticipated surprise, we found out that the cells that were fed AMPM actually started to show increased activity in the longevity and health genes, as well as the genes involved in stem cell replication or numbers and function. And when we looked at AM in a separate group of cells that we tested, we found a very similar thing with a kind of stronger influence on the longevity genes, while the PM formula tended to have a little more impact on the stem cells of stem cell differentiation. So this was a pivotal study, and this is kind of really stimulated us to really this coming year do a number of other studies even more advanced than this. So going back to the yes system pyramid, okay, we have AMPM at the base helping to restore the function of both your body cells and stem cells and making them more receptive to the ingredients in the other yes system products. But now here's the real secret. So if we wanted to look at what are the products that could help really make an impact, potentially enhance, not just bring back to normal or immune function, they would be the following. AMPM has your vitamins and minerals, vitamin C, D3, E. It has prebiotics and probiotics. It has a host of other natural compounds that are anti-inflammatory. Blood sugar regulating compounds would help keep our body fat down and help keep our inflammation lower. Now, when you take AMPM with Zen protein and Zen prime, what do you get? You get more probiotics and prebiotics. Most importantly, you get key protein. Now, why is protein important? for immune function? Well, when we eat protein, and again, it's hard to get 60, 70, or 100 grams of protein a day if we don't supplement. If we eat the right types and quantity of protein in our small intestine, that protein is more easily turned into immune compounds like the immunoglobulins, but also stimulates our T cells, which are another form of tissue immunity. So without protein and the right types and quantities of protein, our immune systems cannot function at its optimal state. So both AMPM and Zen, protein and Zen Prime are two ideal things to help with immune function. Now, when we talked also about the higher our number of stem cells, the better also our immune system is. Why? One of the key types of stem cells in our body that are directly related to immune function are the hematopoietic stem cells. Now, these cells are directly related to immune function. Now, VitaBlue in clinical trials has been shown to elevate all types of stem cells, including hematopoietic stem cells. So in a very short time, but with VitaBlue, we can actually increase the number of those immune enhancing stem cells as well. Now, lastly, if we really want to add every one of the products that are directly related to immune function, we have Reserve. When our bodies are under stress, there's an increased amount of free radical damage. Now, that's damage to our DNA, damage to our cell membranes. Now, Reserve has an amazing complement of natural antioxidants to buffer that free radical damage. So when we look at these products, if we had to say what would be the core products from the Jeunesse Yes system to help with our intestinal function, to help boost immune function by increasing our stem cell numbers, to help with our prebiotics and probiotics so we have better intestinal health, and in general to help with the formation of immune globulins and the right hormone levels, you have right in front of you, a group of products that have already been documented to do those things. So you add this to a healthier lifestyle where you're getting more sleep, you're cutting back on your carbohydrates, your high glycemic index carbohydrates, that is, eat less sugar. You eat lean protein sources like chicken and frankly fish is probably the best way, or tofu, or vegan sources of protein, which are all less inflammatory. And more importantly, and one of the most important things we'll talk about in the last series of the masterclass is our lifestyle, because stress is one of the most deleterious things we can do, and that's psychological stress. Can create tremendous amounts of free radical damage, but also inflammation. So remember, I just said to you, in a moment ago, we inherit genetic tendencies, not genetic certainties. So if 70+% of our genes function, whether they function well or poorly, has to do with our environment, has to do with our stress levels, our diet, our exercise, our supplements, and even what we think, then you are the programmer. It's up to you to really make the change and understand the information we're giving you, because you have every potential to enhance the quality of your health and your wellness. Let me just make one more important comment. Every 3 months, we have all new genetic software. What does that mean? That means that every 3 months, we replace almost every piece of DNA in each one of the 100 trillion cells. Every 3 months. So 3 months from now, you can have a whole new set of genetic software that's functioning more optimally if you incorporate these changes. So in summary, what I'd like to say is that at Jeunesse, our focus is to bring you the latest information and products based on real science to help keep you in an ideal state of health, particularly in today's world where we're constantly challenged from an immune point of view and from a psychological stress point of view. And with that, I'd like to close tonight's masterclass and wish you all a phenomenal, healthy, and safe next few weeks and months. But most importantly, don't forget to take your AMPM, look at the other products we talked about tonight, and start to use those together and really feel what the science behind Jeunesse can make a difference in your health and wellness.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Dr. G and Papa. There were some amazing ways shown there on how we can enhance and maintain our well-being. I really love the power of these products. Dr. G mentions that we are the programmer, and there are very, very few products on the market that allow you the ability to be in control of your health. One of those stats I specifically love there is studies showed that within 12 weeks, 88% of people reported better sleep. And I know, that is probably one of the most detrimental, lack of sleep is one of the most detrimental things to our health. So to know that we have the power to change that, really shows the power of this product.
Absolutely. And again, we're focusing on the products, but also the importance in today's world of a healthy lifestyle.
Absolutely. I love sitting back listening to all of this myself. I make sure I never miss my AMPM. So again, Dr. G, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to each and every one of you for being with us today, and stay tuned for next week's episode. Bye, guys.
Have a great day. Stay healthy. Stay well.